So we'll say Minikube start. I think we are doing with the Kubernetes, correct? Okay, so let us summarize what we have done yesterday. So I was talking about understanding of naming convention. We came to know how to understand the naming convention. And I was talking about the basic format of the commands, kubectl, get deployments, get nodes, get services. Likewise, everything is get there. Then we spoke about decommission of deployment. We saw deletion of the services, and also we saw about deployment deletion. And then we also worked with the scaling options. So we understood what is horizontal scaling, and also we understood about vertical scaling. Okay, this is very much important for your interviews, guys. So please do not take this concept light, because vertical and horizontal are important. The next we saw how to scale up and scale down in Kubernetes, guys. We saw how to scale up the pods and scale down, both by GUI and also the command style. Now today we'll focus on Kubernetes reconfiguration stuff, then how to delete particular pod. So a few things. Then I guess, and maybe in the, if possible, we'll try to finish up today or on Monday. Okay, so what is this Kubernetes deployment reconfiguration stuff? So let me open up the Minikube. So Minikube will not work here. Reason, you have to start the Docker desktop. That is the reason. You need to keep your Docker desktop up and running for me. So it is starting the Docker desktop. Okay, so the Docker desktop is up. Give me a minute, guys. Just give me a minute. Okay, so the Docker desktop is up. Now let me start this mission. Please don't start directly in the VMbox, guys. Cluster will not work properly. So officially use the CLI tools and start it. So I have an opening upon the DevOps, guys. So anybody interested? It's in, I guess, 1 second. Let me check because I just got message from one of the employee. So I think I already posted this DevOps 6 to minimum 6 years, 9, Bangalore. So that's reference from me. Anybody interested? So try with your luck with even fake also it will work because finding the people is tough in the market. Okay, so let's come back. So this is up. Now what we have to do, we have to open up Minikube dashboard. Yeah. So the dashboard is up. Now here, basically we work with the deployments here and also we work with pods. Now first, let's see all the options that are there here. So we already told you, scale we know, restart makes sense. Okay, one interesting point about the restart is, if you select the restart, whatever the pods that have been created out of that deployment, all the pods gets restarted. Now the question comes is you should know when to restart them. So any clue, guys? So when to restart the deployment? When do you restart the deployments? Any clue? Any guess? Quick, you have to give the quick answers. What is whatever it's there in your head, please give me your opinions. So when do you think we have to go for restart of the deployments? Simple reason is we already know we are using a lot of technology devices, right, from mobile, laptop, everything. So when you do some updates, what happens is generally it requests us to just go ahead and restart. Or we can say to do some updates, things will not work properly. Definitely have to restart. The same logic applies. So you're trying to push something, let's say new image, you got it or patched this image, and you want to impact the changes on everybody, all the containers, then you have to click restart. So first of all, this is more important than restart. Edit. So what is this edit? If you click on this edit, it will open up the configuration of the image. So this configuration of the image is visible in two formats. One is YAML format and other one is JSON format. Personally, I recommend you to, both are same. Technically, one is showing in JSON and another one is YAML. So I recommend you to make a habit of looking more into YAML. Okay, because YAML is more easy than JSON. Understanding also is super easy. No brackets, all over headaches not there. So here you have a lot of brackets open. Right. So here it is. So any configuration, let's say these are all configuration details of this image only. So let's say a task came to you. Imagine they're asking you to update little volume definitions here. We already know what is a volume in Dockers. So let's imagine somewhere in the configuration, you'll find the volume also somewhere here only. So once you find that volume information, so let's say you're updating the value. Okay, some thing. What happens is it should impact upon all the pods out of it. So let's say there are 200 pods are there. So if you are not doing on the image, guys, so let's say if you're not doing on the image, then you have to open up the edit of all 200 pods and make changes. So this is a manual work. This is manual work. Otherwise, you open up the image, in the image itself, make edit, update the values, and then save and close. So let's say just an example I want to show you. Let's say replicas 2 are there. I just wanted to make it 4. You just see I updated the value. I click on update and then just go ahead and restart this. Whatever the values that you updated there. Okay. So the application deployment gets restarted and also pods also gets restarted. That is a important thing. So anything that you're updating in the image, you want that updates to impact upon the pods, please go ahead and go for restart. Am I clear on this? So these are all use cases, guys. So you should know when to restart them, when not to restart. Confirm? Atif, Divya, am I clear? Kavya, Kirti. So if you want to impact, simple blind rule, if you want to impact all the pods out of the deployment, update the value there or whatever changes, go to the edit and make changes and click on restart. That's it. It will impact everybody. Okay. All the pods out of the deployment only, not other pods. So that is the use of these options. So this is also called redeploying the configs also. What you just done, what I just showed you, that is nothing but you redeploy the configs, redeploying the configuration. So configurations, you can come up, edit and make necessary changes, update, restart. That's it. It will impact. And the rest of the options, you know it. This is delete, it will delete the deployment. Now let's move on to the pods. So what do you mean by pod is down? Okay, very good question. So we'll talk now, okay, in a minute. So now let's come to the pods here. Okay, come to the pods. Now there are 4 pods are there out of that deployment. Let me decrease the screen size. Okay. Now you select any pod and you'll find the common options: logs, exec, edit and delete. You click on any one, it's the same story: logs, exec, edit and delete. Right? Now, basically, first option is about logs, guys. So if you click on it, it will show you the logs of this pod. Simple. If you want to see the log of a particular pod, you need to come here. Okay. And there's a command also. We'll practice that. Okay. So kubectl log will put the container, this pod ID. So that is simple only. Go back to the pods. And what is this exec? So what is the use of exec in the Dockers? Do you remember, guys? What is the use of exec command in the Dockers? exec helps you to log in into an existing container, correct? So likewise, same logic. exec here helps you to log in into an existing pod. That's it. Okay, I logged into the pod C, right? So once you log in into the pod, any troubleshooting steps that are there, you have to manage it. The next. Edit. So each pod also has an edit option. You can see this is edit. You can say this is edit, right? So edit option helps you to customize this particular pod only. So let's say you created some 100 pods, maybe 20 pods, let's imagine belong to the IBM client, and you have to customize only those 20 users. Rest of them 80 are okay. They use common, but 20 are different. So what do we do? So we identify those 20 pods of the client and come here, and wherever necessary changes are required, we'll update. Are we clear on this? And interestingly, one question here. So how many lines of code do you see? Head count. What is the head count? 183. Now, do you think really we write 183 lines of code? That's the logic. So don't get panic. Don't get stroke also. Okay. So whatever you see on the screen, 183, hardly it is like 14 or 15 lines are written. That's it. Out of those 14 or 15 lines, rest of them is auto-generated. So basically, this is all most of the content that you see is auto-generated by Kubernetes only. Got it? So we hardly write 10, 15 lines. If it is, let's say, bigger image, maybe 30 or 35 lines, not more than that. I never seen any kind of YAML file which is more than 50 or 60 lines. Average is around 20 to 30 only, guys. Am I clear? What do you say, Rahul? You also work in Kubernetes, I guess. Do you agree? So YAML files are usually the main YAML files where we create the images. So they are hardly 20 to 30 lines only, not beyond that. Okay. So don't get scared, guys. So just that is a knowledge you need to know. Okay, here and there you'll find some exceptions where you'll find 50 or 60 lines, but average is around 30 lines only. Okay, so this is entirely, it is auto-generated. And generally we come here to check the host pod IP, okay, pod IPs, okay, where the volume, which image, okay. We want to update some values here. That is what we do. So we click on update, that's it. So it will impact. Now, whatever you made this changes, it will impact immediately, guys. Because the moment you save and come out, it will impact the pod immediately. And that is only for it only, for that part, not others. And the last option is we have delete. So delete is very logic, common sense point. If you click on delete, what happens? It will delete the pod. That's it. Not a big deal here. If you just click it, it will delete. Now you let's see what happens, guys. I deleted, but it got deleted again, recreated. Any reason for this? Like Ravana, did you saw the Ravana's, I think some mythology serials user. So if you kill one head, another head automatically gets regenerated. Correct? So mythology story I'm talking about. So like a dog's tail, you try to make it, oh, there's famous kahawat hai na? So again, it will circle back, right? Like dog's tail. So here's the story is, it is because of scaling. Here in this Kubernetes, it's all about the scaling because the scale value is 4. So let's say suddenly 2 went down. 2 went down. Down means they are not working. They're not working could be any reason. So don't think that just only error. It may be down because of network issues. It may be down because of too much data in it, it's not able to handle. It may be down because of memory issues. Memory issues also possible. It may be down altogether because of updations in the configurations also. So you see it, right? You have an edit button here. Sometimes misfiring, even if you misfire some configurations here, suddenly the pod will go down. It will crash. Got it? I'll show you some live, but I don't have that link with me. So remind me in the next class, guys. I'll show you. So we have a lot of pods. You'll see a couple of pods are crashing, couple of regenerating. Again, application becomes live. So that is what happens here in the pod. So this is all about the options, guys. Delete, edit, exec, logs, and you go here. Scale, edit, restart, delete. So that's about the reconfiguration stuff. Now this is a command. If you want to see, I just showed you the what you can say from the GUI. But if you're planning to do from command line, so this is what you need to use command. You can say kubectl rollout restart. You put the namespace and put the deployment name, application name you need to put. So if you put the application name, what happens? Tell me, guys. If you put the application name, what happens? Is it only, say, if you put the application name, what happens is entire pods out of it that are evolved will get restart. So if you want a specific pod, then instead of deployment here, just put the pod and put the pod name here. So basically all commands look same only. The next, these are the roles you need to identify. So this is crazy question. They can ask in the interviews. Who will restart the applications or who will restart the deployment? So basically this is DevOps activities only. Who will restart the pod or pods? It is DevOps activity only. But who will restart the cluster? That is not a DevOps activity. So that is Kubernetes admin. Because we use only kubectl, it will not allow you to restart cluster, but in the kubeadm, it will allow you to restart. Okay. Now, one point you need to remember, what is the impact if you restart the cluster? Any guess here? Impacts also, guys, because these are all common questions. So what is the impact if you are going to restart the cluster? So in that cluster, let's say 50 deployments are there. All 50 will go down for fraction of few seconds. Then again, they become up. Because as you know, because once they go down again to become up, it will take some time, correct? So that is definitely a downtime. So restart of cluster will impact all the deployments, guys, on that cluster. Okay, now you need to know one more point. How many clusters can be created on a server? This is also one more logic you should know. So we were speaking about, say, deployments, nothing but apps are inside of the cluster, correct? Again, cluster is upon the server, correct? So don't think that on a server only you'll have one cluster. So that is wrong assumption. So like in a district, you have multiple, or let's say in an area, you'll have multiple colonies. So each colony itself is a cluster, right? So likewise here, a server may contain the multiple clusters based on its infra capacity. That means it's based on the machine capacity. So if it is, let's say, it is a little high-end machine, it can manage 10 clusters. So let's say it is too much high-end machine, it may manage 50 clusters also. Under each cluster, you have hundreds of deployments. So please be clear that don't assume that on a server you'll have only one cluster. Generally, to my knowledge, they'll maintain only headcount will be low, guys. Too much clusters on a server can be dangerous also. Reason is it will impact the performance and it will work slow. So that's the reason they will run 4 to 5 clusters. That's it. Clear? Maunika, Nagireddy, Rajat, Bhagat, Rahul, Rohini. Yeah. So keep in mind that you guys will be working with a cluster. Sometimes you will see crazy, because in my project also it is same. Let's say my product is there, some software. My product I'm hosting on Kubernetes. Let's say IBM wants to have an access. For an IBM client, I'll create a cluster. Okay. So let's say Infosys wants to access. So for Infosys also, I'll create a separate cluster. So in a real time, how they manage it depends on company's will and wish, guys. Whether they want to put all the clients in a single cluster and give the access, or they want to bifurcate them based on their, what you can say, their contract. So IBM cluster is separate, Infosys cluster is separate. Usually they'll keep the separate clusters only. Okay. So that is what they do. Okay. Then next, Kubernetes deployment deletion. I guess we already saw this yesterday. So we can delete namespace and put the deployment name. We already saw this yesterday, guys. How do you delete the deployment? By command. And this is to delete a particular pod. Somebody was asking how to delete a particular pod yesterday. So this is a command. You need to put, so let's try once so that you will know. Okay. So these are the pods. So what I'll do is I want to delete the last one. So what I should do? So kubectl delete -n namespace. It is sitting in default. Then I think -pod or pod. What is that? Yeah, pod. Pod. And put the pod ID or a name. So this is the one. Paste it and press enter. It's gone. Delete it. So basically commands are easier, guys. Only thing is you need to understand the concept. So kubectl delete -m like this. So don't worry about remembering all these commands, guys. Till the interview you qualify, you have to remember, because you have to practice and crack a job. after you join the project, so you'll maintain some kind of a notepad, or let's say you'll maintain some Excel sheet or OneNote or MS Word document, and generally maintain the commands which you regularly use in your projects. So that is sufficient. So that's about the deletion of the pod. Then this is different, guys. How do you deploy an image directly in the Kubernetes without following the deployment process? So normally deployments can be done in different ways also, guys. Okay, there is some concept called Helm charts also. So that goes under administration part. So Helm charts, using the Helm charts also we can do the deployments. Okay. And what you just saw, using this method also we can do the deployment. What we discussed yesterday. Now I'm talking about a third use case where we directly roll out, create a pod without actually following the process. So if you're planning to follow a process, so definitely we have to create definitely we have to publish the port for it. Then we have to create the service URL for it, or endpoint we call it as, and then make it live and give that customer. So that is normal process. But what are you going to talk now? So this is one of the quickest way to check whether the image is capable on hosting on Kubernetes or not. The reason is any image, let's say I told you, right, Docker, even Docker images will work on the Kubernetes, guys, but not every image will work. So that is a problem. So don't think that everything that you get from Docker can be done in Kubernetes. That assumption is wrong. So that's the reason they given this method to quickly test the compatibility of the image. So let's say you have an image with you and you want to check whether really this can work in Kubernetes or not. So this is the process. Kubernetes or not, this is a process. So try this command. You say kubectl run and give some pod name and directly give the image name. So using this image, it will create a pod. That's it. It will not go for deployment, guys. So if you create a deployment, then you have to expose the ports and you have to expose the end URL. So that is completely like a production grid. But this is a quick check to identify whether the image is capable or compatible or not. If it is failing here, then you need to think that that image is not capable to hold or create in the Kubernetes. So you need to make some updates in the image. So this is one best example. So let's say I have an Nginx image which is sitting in the Docker Hub. Okay. And I want to create a pod out of it. So if I'm trying to talk in Docker style, I will say I have that image. From that image, I'll create a container. But if I'm talking in a Kubernetes, I have an image. From the image, I'm creating a pod. So this test can quickly create only one pod. So let's go ahead and try. Not here, sorry. So paste it. See guys, simple command is simple. kubectl run and choose the image. And here you need to put the pod name. So whatever the pod that is going to take birth, so that pod will carry this name. Okay, so let's change the name to your batch. So let's put it as, you guys are, I guess, 31B hyphen. You see, it says 31 hyphen Nginx app has been created. Now what do you do? Go back here, right, and check kubectl get pods. So this is the one which we are just created, and it says it is creating the container. So that means it is taking time. Yeah, it created. So it says now the state is running, and it has been created just 35 seconds ago, and it has been up. So now let's go to the dashboard and see where it is impacting. So check on, let me refresh this. Okay, under deployments, I don't see any impact here or no change. But when I go to the pods, I can see it. You see here, this is the one which we just created. Understood, guys, what I'm trying to tell you? Yes or no? Okay, nice. Okay, so that's about quickly checking the compatibility of the image, guys. So keep in mind, if when you fire the kubectl, it'll run upon an image. If the pod gets generated, so you have to believe that that is possible, that image can be hosted in Kubernetes. If it is in the sample test and if it is failing, then not possible. So you need to update your images. Now, let's move on with very, very important command in Docker's, this Kubernetes describe command. So what is the use of this describe command? So describe command in simple, it tries to provide you the more details, guys. That's it. So this is something like you can say a kind of a contact where it tries to provide you more information. So let's see. When you fire the describe on the pod, so this describe command can be fired upon your pods, your deployments, right? Your nodes, your services, your namespaces, etc. So whatever the objects or whatever the resources that you have in the Kubernetes, you can fire the describe command on everybody. So basically it starts with something same story kubectl common word. We say describe. Okay. Then we'll say pod and we put the information. So let's try a couple of examples. See. So let me get the data here. So kubectl describe and I will say pod. Pod or pods one and the same. I want to know more information about this. So let's say copy this and put it there. Press enter. See. So this is pulling the information. Okay, it has provided the quick information about this pod in more detail. So it is telling what is its name, where it is hosted, what is its priority service account, where it is working, what is its IP address, when it started, right? End-to-end details. So you have a lot of details here. So these details can be really handy when you're trying to troubleshoot a pod, guys. So describe information, whatever you get. So these are basically required when you're trying to fix some problem. So we have to identify the things. Now, one interesting point is this command can also help you to pull out the same describe command. At the end, you see the events. That means this is nothing but the logs. Okay. So one good thing about the describe command is when you fire, it will also automatically pull the logs. So all information at one place. So that is a benefit of your describe. Now let me try the describe command on deployment. Okay. So kubectl get deployments. We have this. Now let me try kubectl describe and put the so we have to tell what is it is. This is a deployment or deployments one and the same. See, I'll first try deployment. I got some data. Then I'll put add s here because there is no difference. It is the same data you'll get. Okay. So I am firing this command upon the deployments now. So this deployment, I want to know more information. See, the same information is available here. So you can see how much scaling has been replicas for, desired for, updated for. So, and again, when the event started, scaling events, when it happened, from 0 to 1, it went from 4 to 3, from 1 to 2. So you'll know when it has been scaled up or scaled down by looking into this information. Got it? So if somebody asks how the scaling is happening, it's a very, very important point, guys, because we do the scaling audits also sometimes. So I think we done this earlier little. So whether scaling is working or not, whether it is happening up or not, sometimes you'll get a doubt really whether it's working. So this describe command can help you. So you fire the describe command and upon the deployment, see, it is telling you 20 from 0 to 1. 4 to 3, 1 to 2, 3 to 2. So scale up, scale down. Everything is written here. So you'll know when it is scaling up, when it is scaling down. So that is the concept of describe. You can also fire this on the nodes also. So let's see, cube CTL get the nodes first of all, so that I can use it the name here. Okay, so cube CTL describe node, because we are talking to the node. So we have to say node minikube. See, it is giving the in-depth details about this mission. Where is this? Where it started? Okay, here it is. See? So from here, all the details of that. So end-to-end details are available here. What operating system? See, OS is Ubuntu. Ubuntu OS, AMD. So runtime container is Docker. So it is running upon the Docker, right? So different things you'll come to know here. It also shows the logs also, how the machine is doing. See, event. So one interesting thing is if I ask a relevant question here. So I want to know one of my node is, I want to pull the logs of one of the node in a cluster. What command will you use, guys? Question is, let's say in a multi-node cluster setup, you have one server and let's say 4 worker machines. And I want to pull out the details of the log of second mission, second worker. How do you do it? What is the command, guys? The same command what we just tried. So we have to say, so kubectl describe our nodes, or nodes are nodes one and the same, and just put the PC number 2 details. That name is required there. You press enter, it will produce the data of logs of second server. So that is the use of this describe command. Yeah. Okay, there is one more option here. So kubectl get parts, we already know. Let's attach -o option. So let's see what happens when I put -o. Let me clear the screen. So kubectl get parts -o and put wide. What is the difference here? What difference it is making, guys? So the first column is, so let me, I have to decrease its font because you'll feel that it is getting confused. Text, let's make it little small, 14. Okay, apply, save. Now I'm doing this command again. So the table is super clear now. You see? So this is an, so we got this block is nothing but your first column is nothing but your this one parts, and extra details you're getting is from this one. So you'll get the IP address of your pods and where it is working. Who is a nominated node? Nominated node means your master server control plane. So readiness gates, how it is intruding. So these are all different details you'll get, guys. The next. Okay, so this is interesting now. So how do you write the coding in Kubernetes? So to generate the image, coding in Kubernetes. So in a Kubernetes, coding should be written in YAML and the file extension should be .yaml, guys. I repeat once again, the coding The most popular is YAML only. So you can also write the coding in JSON. So Kubernetes also encourages JSON way of writing, also encourages YAML way of writing. But the most popular thing in the currently in the market is YAML only. So coding is written in YAML style. And one of the biggest well-known problem in the Kubernetes is coding is somewhat a little complicated. That is the reason, little complicated only, not so easy. So that is the reason, 90% out of 100, 90% of the people, even in my project also we do the same thing. 90% we write the code in the Dockers. We create the Docker file, we generate the Docker image and get that image hosted on Kubernetes. Because considering the complexity of the code writing, Docker is damn super easy and everybody can understand. But considering the Kubernetes, it is little tough. And again, this subject is still evolving. That's the reason whatever you written today, maybe after 6 or 7 months, again you need to update. So that is one well-known problem in the Kubernetes case. So keep in mind, 90% of the market is still dependent on Docker way of writing, and they get that image in hosted on Kubernetes. But still, as a sample, so let's see. So code is written either in YAML or a JSON, but YAML is a popular. Now, whatever the file, okay. So whatever the file that you create to write your code, that file is classified as manifest. In Ansible, we called playbook. Okay. In Docker, we call as Docker file. Here we should call it as manifest. So the file that helps where you write your code and get it executed, and that file where you're creating the images out of it or deployments out of it, we call that as manifest. Now, when you're writing the manifest, you have to be super clear for what reason you're writing. Okay. Whether you're writing the manifest for creating the pod, whether you're writing the manifest to create the deployment, and whether you're writing the manifest to create a service, whether you're writing a pod to create replicas, because these are all different objects used in the manifest case. Okay, so you should have to be clear. See, these are called objects. Are you writing for pod? Are you writing for replicas? Are you writing for deployment services, etc.? Now, basically, whatever it could be, whether it is pod or let's say whatever I was talking, whether it's pod or a deployment or a service or replicas. So there is a standard structure. So standard structure, right? So that standard structure, this is how it looks like, guys. So let me open some sample programs so that you'll able to understand what I'm talking. Kubernetes sample YAML files. First the sample some we'll see. Just a sample only, nothing. You see this file. They started with telling API version. Then they said kind pod. Then they said metadata. They given some name and they said labels. Okay. See this format. I'll scroll down. They written the same code in the JSON format. Earlier code it was written in YAML format. This block. So which one you feel easy, guys? Is it YAML or JSON? What is comfortable? So what is comfortable for you, Rahul? Is it YAML or JSON? Pavan, Rohini, Samir, Sanjay, Sashul Ahmed. It's YAML only. Even I'm comfortable with YAML. So sometimes JSON, you have to count the how many brackets are open and how many brackets are closed. So that's a one headache. Okay. So you know how I calculate, because I also have to check a lot of codings in my project also. So let's say I'm auditing a file. I'll count the brackets. If it is even, that means brackets are perfect. Open and closed perfect. So let's say I'm counting them, it became 17. What does it mean? I got the head count as 17. What does it mean, guys? One bracket somewhere missed, right? So the nearest, this is how I actually usually calculate. So 17 means either he should have written the code of opened 16 brackets, 16 openings, sorry. Yeah, 8 openings. That means 8 closes. It should be 16. By mistake, he might have added open one extra. This is how I assume when I'm auditing the codes. Maybe the guy has opened 9 and he only closed 8. That means it became what? 17 and he missed 1. So always in JSON, we just check with the even number. If the even is coming, then it should be good. So this is a well-known concerns there. Now let's see some sample codes. So this is same thing is written like this. Now see one more example here. So he's saying API kind metadata spec, right? In the specs is calling the containers and is defining the port numbers. And for this image also is defining the port numbers. You understood how the things are happening? So you can see here. So that means definitely there is some kind of a standard format. That is what I'm trying to tell you. There is a standard format. Now let's come back to that format now. So that format is, it will start with API version, guys. Any coding file will start with API version. In the API version, only 3 values are allowed. V0, V1, V1.1, V1.2. Only 3 values are allowed. So it is something like in API, this is one more concern here. If API version value is written incorrectly, images will also fail. So let's say I'm writing a 1.0. It is failing. I'll change this to 1. It will work. The reason is API version will tell you about the Kubernetes features, how the Kubernetes has been developed. So like a normal life example, Activa 3G and Activa 4G. What is the difference? I'm talking about Scooty, guys. We use Scooties, right? Activa 3G and Activa 4G. Same vehicle. What is the difference? In Activa 3G also 2 wheels are there. In Activa 4G also 2 wheels only. 2 tires, right? Same runs on petrol. So, but there is a difference. Technically, but there is a difference. Correct? Fundamentals may be same, but there is a difference. Correct? So likewise, that means we are trying to understand that it is features are updated. Do you agree? Simple word. Not to make it complicated, we just say that features are updated. Correct, guys? Now, likewise, if you use 1.0 here, that means you're calling the 1.0 version of Kubernetes. Okay, or 1.1 API version calling it. Okay, if you say 1.2 is the latest. So most of the market is using 1.1. 1.2 is the latest phase. So 1.1 is the most commonly used. 1.0 is an outdated. So 1.1 is the currently in use. 1.2 is the latest. So let's see in this example what this guy has used. So we are talking about the capability, guys. In API version V1, we have some capability. In API version 1.1, we have a different capability. In API version 1.2, different capability. So he is using V1. Okay, but that means 1.0. So API version v1. The next value is kind. Now, what you have to write in the kind? That standard templates, guys. We have to start with API, the next with the kind. What is a kind there? In the kind, you have to tell what you are trying to do. Are you trying to create a pod? Are you trying to create a deployment? Or are you trying to create a service? Only 3 words are allowed. So are you trying to create a pod, deployment, or a service? So now you see this guy was trying to create a pod. That's it. What does it mean? Okay, one more I forgot to tell you guys. Main point I forgot to tell you. Let me go back. By looking at that, I remembered. Let me come back to this one. This one. When you directly create a pod without, that means shortcut technique. Okay, we are not following a deployment process, correct? We're following a shortcut. So directly creating a pod without a deployment process, that pod will not have the capability to scale up or scale down. Only any application or any pod created via deployment process only will have the capabilities of scaling up and down. Please write that point. Very, very important. That's the reason in Kubernetes, they'll follow the deployment process only. Because end of the day, they want to use it for scaling only. So any applications that have been deployed without following a deployment process, shortcut techniques if you use, then you have to forget about the scaling. So scaling is not an option available in non-deployment process techniques. Okay. So this guy cannot scale up. You see, he said just say pod. Okay. So that is what. So let's come back to this point. See, pod services. Okay. Kind is done. So this is what again, guys. This is one more thing you have to remember. So if you are planning to create a pod, this table is very important for you. If you're planning to create a pod, then API version should be v1. If you're planning to create a service, then API version should be v1. If you're planning to create a deployment coding, then you have to write the API version as apps/v1. I'm talking about this column. So this column is coming from here. And this is coming from here. Accordingly, you need to match the following. Make sense? So childhood, we studied to match the following likewise. If you say pod, then API becomes v1. If you say I want to create service, again v1. If you say I want to create the deployment, then that. So these tables are always available in the official site only. So this is just a glimpse I copied from there. Okay, the next is metadata. Next object. So these are all things what I'm just talking, API version, kind, these are all called objects only. So next is metadata. So what metadata can do? So metadata is all about just defining that deployment names, or we can say we are creating the names and labels. That's it. So it's all about creating the names and labels. Just see this example, you'll understand. So he was saying metadata, the name is, he's just giving the name for reference as RSS-site. And he want to label this as app is web. Okay. Now go back to our coding stuff and see what it is written. So metadata, it says my application -pod, and label it says my application, my app. So we'll see practically when you're deploying. The next is specifications. Okay. So in the specs, this is a place where you have to call your containers, from which container you have to create a pod. Now look into this example and tell me, if he is creating a pod, okay, I made the code small, okay, so that it should be visible for you. Now, if he is creating a pod, according to the coding that you see on the screen, tell me how many containers he is using. These are all requires only just a common sense, guys. Nothing coding skills nor Kubernetes engineering kuda avasaram la. We don't require any engineering certificate also. So I'll highlight once again. You have to see and confirm. So my question was definitely this guy, this site, he was trying to create pod only because his coding is going to the pod. He wants to create pod, not deployment. Now, if he is creating a pod, you remember the basics? I told you, right? A pod can have one container. Okay. A pod can also have multiple containers. Do you remember this? In the architecture, I told you. A pod can contain one container. A pod may also contain multiple containers. Now keep this logic in the brain and now look into the code and tell me quickly. It's easy only on the screen. So how many containers is it consuming or using to create a pod? Sushmita, what is the answer? It's a 2. Sravanti, yeah, it's a 2. Right. Sheikh Afroz, Shashul Ahmed, Sanjay. It's a 2 only, guys, because, okay, you can see here, he called a container and is giving the details here. Okay, another container is giving the details here. So this is 1 and this is 2. Okay, that is 1 and this is 2. So he's giving some name here, some reference name. See guys, reference names are always non-technical. Even if you say Bahubali here, it will take it. Even if you write your own personal name, junk email ID also, it will take it. So because these are all non-technical, but whatever you write here, whatever I round up, these are technical stuff. These are technical stuff, this part. Okay. So he's calling the Nginx image and he's creating a container, and that container will operate on port number 80. And he's calling an image, this image, okay, and he's creating a container with this image, and its port number is 88. So now you tell me, guys, by looking into this, see, now the question is super easy. You see 2 things here. Now you tell me who is an application and who is a base here. Which one is an application and which is a base? Who will face the end user and who will be behind the scenes in these containers? You have to remember the architectures, guys. I told you if you have multiple containers, one guy will be facing the customer and other guys will be behind the scenes. Right? You remember this diagram? I think I gave you. So if this was the container and these are all, let's say, containers, and I told you one of them will be, so let's say this one may be facing the customer and the rest of all these fellows in that box will be helping this guy. So now keep that logic and tell me now which one is a helper and which one is a main candidate. So first identify helper container, guys. Which is a helper container here? Is it the first one or second one? So let's say this is 1 and this is 2. What is your answer, Rohini, Rahul, Pavan, Nagireddy? Which one should I consider as a helper? Is it 1 or a 2? Helper Yeah, Sravanti identified. First one is a helper. That means this will sit behind the scenes. Okay. So this is actually containing your application. And this will be facing the customer, like you and me. And to this to operate, this is helping here. Got it? Or this guy takes help of this container. So to and fro things will happen, and end of the day, this customer will be accessing this one. So that is a logic of this code actually here that you see on the sample. But just by looking something online, I was able to identify who is in how many containers likewise. So here also same logic, guys. Got it? So let's do one sample. Okay. Where is the sample code? Yeah, this is a sample code, guys. I'll create a file. Now let's see how to create it, guys. So always I recommend you to create the project folder. So I'll say mkdir 31b Kubernetes file. Okay. Not project, I'll say. Done. I go into this 31b and now I'll create a file here. So what should be the file name? Any guess here? What should be the file name? We can give anything. There is no particular anything. It can be anything. So I'll say touch, or let's say touch 31b K8s code dot YAML. Simple. So 31b K8s code dot YAML. But extension should be YAML, guys. Done, created. Open this and write the code. So I'll simply go ahead and copy paste it. So I copy paste it. Now I'll update accordingly. You see these names? Just observe, guys. API version is V1 because I'm creating a pod and metadata is so and so. So you see these names, my application hyphen pod. Okay. Label name, it will say my application. So for to make it easy recognition, I'll put a app as 31b hyphen my application. So labels are is a label. Just see. Okay. And specs, another specs I'm calling the container. Which container am I calling? Nginx container. This is a reference name, but the image is Nginx. So I'll save this and come out. Now you need to execute this, guys. If you execute this, then it will read the code and it will automatically create the pod. So before I create the pod, I want to show you the proof. Get pods. I don't have that 31b so and so pod. Okay. Now I'm creating it. So this is a command which will help you to. There are two commands are there. One is old and other one is a new. So this is an older command, guys. Create. Now recently we started using apply. So both will work. You can use any one of them. So let's try. I will say cube CTL apply. I'll use apply because this is the latest one. I'll say hyphen F. You have to say hyphen F, guys. Then type the file name. So what is the file name? So the file name that I written the code is 31b. This is a file name where I written the code. I'll say K8s, right? Now what happens here? So when you say like this, the apply command will read the code, whatever it is written in that file, and starts implementing it. I got an error. What is that error? So it is saying that line number 6, something is funny. So let's open up the code. What went wrong in line number 6? Okay, format is missing. Make sure that this guy you put it, because these are all ML fundamentals, guys. Okay. Save this and close. Again execute. Again error, huh? Why? Escape I. API version is V1 now. Kindes pod. Okay, this is also unnecessary space. You need to follow the spec containers. Why this is here it is. You need to arrange correctly. Okay, done. So spacing was the issue. We made it right. So better if you have little confusion, guys, please use the Visual Code Studio that we used for our Ansible. Now you can also write the code there. Nothing wrong. Okay, open up MS Visual Code Studio and you write the code there so that it will be helpful. Okay, so I written the code. Now everything is fine. Now let's check the kubectl get pods. You see, how come this name is coming, guys? Oh, sorry, this one. How come this name is coming? Because my application hyphen pod. This name is coming because the name of the pod is picking from here. Even if you open the code and see from where, how come this name came here? My application hyphen pod. So you see, I think this it picked up. Do you agree? Yes or no, guys? So the name it picked up from the metadata name tag. Got it? That's the reason I kept a different name so that you will understand from where it is picking. Okay, save this. Then come out and go to the dashboard and check. You will have your my application hyphen pod. You see, Nginx. And did we create the deployment? No, because our output was only focusing on pod only, because our kind was pod. The kind we just said pod. If it is deployment, then definitely again the code looks little lengthy. So in this somewhere. Deployment. Okay, one example is there, creating a Kubernetes deployment via YAML. So let's see how this guy has written. Say the code is looking little different. So he said now API version app/v1. How come he written this value here? You follow the table. I gave you the table now. See, his target was to create the deployment. That's the reason in API version he was saying apps/v1, right? Kindes deployment. Makes sense? I hope you understood these two lines now, at least. Then metadata, we know which name it will pick. Labels is per reference. A spec. Replicas. What is a replicas, guys? Scaling. Because in the deployments, you have scaling option now. Yes or no? In the deployments, you can scale up. That's the reason he was using replicas. Then further replicas, selector means naming conventions. The next spec, from where he is creating. See, container. Again, some container. So the same code earlier he written in the pod style, and the same code is writing in the deployment style. So for reference, I'll give this web link so that you guys can try offline. So that's a good thing. You can try. Here already given, I guess. Yep, this link. So that is what you need to do, guys. So coding is out of scope for us because, as I told you, this is a complicated one. Generally, the coding in the Kubernetes is done by development team. So developers eligible to write very complex codes here, and 90% of the IT society is using the Docker images to put it on Kubernetes. And again, remember, so if you want to practice, these are all the sheets you have. So I'll give you one sheet. Let's say this is one site we already saw. There are some couple of projects you can try. You try with the pod, but creating a pod, and then go with putting the same code for deployment and see how it goes. The next, this is a cheat sheet, guys. This is a handbook. So this is a handbook. Okay. So if you have a lot of time with you, so this goes from very basic level to advanced level. Got it? I found very nice site online where you can do a lot of things. Very nice handbook. Okay, just spend some time, guys. So this site, whatever, I don't know who maintains this, but this site, whatever handbook that I see, you guys see here, this contains the administration level also. So beyond the DevOps, he covered the administration. Okay. So this is one sample. Now look into the sample, what they are trying to do. Tell me, guys. What they're trying to do, they're trying to create a service. Service is nothing but creating the ports there. So type is load balancer, ports is 80, target port is 80. Creating a load balancer. So this is for that. Yeah, I recommend you to try the both. But only this is after your, okay, look into this code and tell me, guys, what they are trying to do. Only questions I'll ask, you should look into the code and tell me. What they are trying to do, it's a deployment. How many replicas they are targeting? 3. Okay, what is an image? From which image? Image, guys, tell me what is that image name? This is the image name. This is, it says now fishy, some nodes dot API. Yeah, this is the one. Now, another question. Okay. How many pods it will create? If I deploy this, how many pods it will create? Three pods, correct. Next question. In each pod, how many containers will be there? One container. Correct. That is right. Because you can see the code is only pointing to one container. He's not using any multiple containers there. The next pod should be accessed on which port number? That container or a pod? 3000. That's it. So these are all the small things. So if you have the template like this, you guys keep in mind only we'll update the right hand side RHS values. Even we do the same thing. We just go on to the internet and copy some sample code. Okay, update the RHS values, whatever it is required, replicate it, write it. Clear? Nice. There is one more site here. This is officially the Kubernetes site only, which contains entire commands list. Whether you are a developer or you are a network engineer or a DevOps or an admin, all the commands are available here. This is an entire lengthy list of all the commands used for what purpose. Right from scaling, deleting, creating pods, cluster, remove cluster, nodes, all commands at one place. So this is like a cheat sheet. So this can come in handy when you are trying to work with Kubernetes case. So that's all from the Kubernetes. So we'll stop it here. Okay. And we'll go ahead with the next tool. Clear? So there is no session tomorrow, guys, Saturday, and we'll come back again on Monday. Chalo. See you. Bye-bye.